Vanderlei, let me ask you about this real fast. What is going on with TJ and Cody? I mean, that fight is off, right? Cody went to Facebook. He announced that fight was off a while ago. Dana came and goes, you know what? I'm not quite ready to scratch that. We have this thing in Germany set up. I'm confident it's going to work. Then all of a sudden, TJ's time out. Look, I'm going to take on Demetrious. That just started to move on. But that fight was never scratched. It still sits at the top of the bill. Then Cody came out as recently as yesterday morning and said, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not training right. I need to wait. I need to make sure this is right. So that fight is off, correct? We're not going to say TJ versus Cody in July. Can we say that?
Yeah, because you got a bad back. Can't take the fight if you got a bad back. So, as far as I know, I don't have any inside knowledge, but the theory, the pet theory now floating around is that this whole TJ fighting Mighty Mouse is and Mighty Mouse's denial is a negotiating tactic to basically get more money. So, I don't have anything new to add to that. I apologize.
You know what's exciting though for Demetrious, and I hope he doesn't miss. I'm quite sure he doesn't, but it would appear that he is, even if he's just playing cards here. But he has pay-per-view bonus. He has points. Now he's never got a back-end pay-per-view check because he hasn't met his thresholds. He may not with TJ. TJ versus Demetrious is not a blockbuster fight. However, that is the biggest fight that Demetrious has ever been part of. Quite possibly, the same could be said for TJ. TJ versus Dominic, it probably did bigger numbers than TJ versus Demetrious, but you still get my point. Demetrious is now in a position, we were talking about it earlier, I can provide you with opportunity. He now has the opportunity to get major news outlets to talk about this fight, to get major coverage, to get major numbers, and to get one of those back-end checks if those thresholds can be met. I'm not sure that Demetrious... I'm not sure that that's not just fair enough. Hey, Demetrious, look, your guarantee's still set, but don't forget, you have this back-end deal. It's never been activated, but we project that it could be. Let's go out and do this fight. What do you think?
I think...
How big is that fight? Am I missing the mark on that? I mean, I'm interested in that fight, but I'm not just clamoring at the bit. Take Jones versus Cormier, man, I can't wait.
It's big to us, we have a different frame of reference. It's a huge fight to us because we're in this bubble. To the casual fan... less so. I mean, and you mentioned missing pay-per-view thresholds. There's a reason why that's the case. He's the most talented fighter, and he just doesn't seem to draw as well. And whether that's a case of not being promoted enough, or him not seizing opportunity at the right moment, or just not catching lightning in the bottle at the moment where something that he does goes viral, and all of a sudden he has that name recognition that he can capitalize on. But for whatever reason, he's more of a hardcore fan kind of a draw. And I think TJ is in a similar situation here. Didn't have that long of a run as a champion, and very well known within the bubble, less so outside of the bubble. And it seems like they're kind of putting a lot of push behind Cody. They think Cody is a guy who could maybe break through. He's good looking. He fights incredibly well. He beat the hell out of Dominic.
He's got attitude. He's young.
He's young. It seems like they're pushing him, and they're kind of hoping he's going to be the next guy. But really, these are educated guesses. You don't really know how somebody draws until you look at the pay-per-view receipts afterward. And I do agree that TJ versus Demetrious would probably draw better than anything that Demetrious has got in the flyweight division. But at the same time, I think it'd be at the same level of Jones and Cormier, who fought in the middle of the MGM, went to Sports Center, Jones's litany of troubles outside the cage, and this great reel of grudge that they've got. I don't think it's on the same level. Put him as a co-main event on a pay-per-view. And maybe that's the end game here. Maybe Demetrious just wants good placement on a pay-per-view that he knows is going to get meet that threshold.
I don't know if Demetrious strategizes enough.
No?
I don't know if he does. When I listen to some of his interviews, I go, hey man, here's the guy. This guy's amazing. They have him ranked number 1. I think Jones is number 1, but I wanted to argue that Demetrious is either 1 or 2. He's that incredible of a talent. But I'm not sure he understands the business. He comes out and he says, look, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to train and fight. Well, okay, but then you're going to have a place, and it's going to be a smaller place, but that's where you are. You know, Demetrious had come out 1 week before his last fight when he was doing his media tour, and he said the reason that this division doesn't draw is we don't have any drama and we don't have any a-holes. Well, he's right. He's spot on. He is the good guy. He's a game playing, nerdy guy, and I mean that in a good way, that's a straight-up killer that goes out and takes care of business, and he doesn't have that counterpart that's going to be a villain or bring drama or do any of these kinds of things. You know, Demetrious really nailed it, and he just wasn't interested in changing his own gimmick. So he really needs somebody else to do it. I watched Roy Jones go all through the 90s, being the same guy, but he never had that counterpart. Roy Jones never drew any real money for being the boxer of a decade, and it wasn't because he didn't have great fights and incredible opponents. It wasn't anything like that at all. But unless those opponents can resonate and become interesting to the fans, then you really don't have a great opponent. I watched, I think, all of Roy's fights. I couldn't name right now off the top of my head one of them. If you gave me a little time, I could. And I remember when he moved up to heavyweight and he fought Ruiz. I remember that fight. I can't remember, and I don't think I missed a Roy Jones fight in the 90s. I don't know that I could name an opponent. And that's not because he wasn't fighting hammers. They just weren't interesting. For whatever reason, they hadn't broken through and become compelling storylines to the audience, which is us, which was me. And
also Demetrious, I think, has changed his mindset a little bit in the past couple of years. I think he's a little bit less worried about offending people, and so I see him cursing a lot more. Like early in his career, he didn't really curse in interviews. Now he's cursing a lot more. I mean, when I interviewed him in 2012, he wanted to, like, his plan was to go work at Costco after he retired. That was his plan. I'm going to go work at Costco. I make a great salary. I have good living. And I'm gonna live out this sort of middle class kind of life. And back then, the money was a lot different. He got a pretty big raise, and I think he's sort of let go a little bit. I think he's seen the MMA world sort of evolve into this sort of hybrid now, like where everybody's trying to do your deal, Conor's deal. It's people are really getting the fact that there's so many fighters and you really need to stand out. You know, it's when I was watching World Series of Poker in 2005-06. It's like all the characters I knew. You know, I could follow them. I knew their backstories. Then, you know, cut to 5-10 years later, it's like I don't even know who these guys are. And I think a lot of casual fans have that experience when they turn into UFC. Oh yeah, Tito. Oh yeah, Randy. Like I get those guys. But who are all these other guys? Like, you know, it's an investment, and you really have to maximize your time, and you got to get kind of lucky at the same time. You got to catch that moment that resonates within the culture, and hopefully the culture at large, i.e. Ronda and Conor, and that's when you start breaking through.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And, you know, the sports era did have a good run, and it might be back, but we are definitely in the entertainment era. And if guys don't understand that, they are going to fall behind. And Demetrious is one of those guys, if he didn't have that belt, he would be left behind. If he didn't have that belt to solidify his place, his contract, and his spot on the card in that main event championship fight, he is a guy that would likely still be shuffled. He could be undercard for some fights if he went by the regular algorithm, which is who draws, size also with weight classes. He is one of those guys. And I mean that as a way that, hey, Demetrious, let's sit down and put a strategy together because you are the man. And you got a lot of personality. I worked with him over at Fox. I mean, this guy had a lot of personality. He had a lot of charisma. Dominic Cruz was another guy. Now, Dominic's personalities finally came through, and I don't have to just tell you, hey, behind the scenes, this guy is so funny, and this guy's so angry, and this guy's so energetic. Now people have finally seen that with Dominic, but he had a slow rise, too. First time I met Dominic Cruz, man, it was one of the funniest, most entertaining nights of my life. Are you ready for that statement? I am not exaggerating. I met this guy. I hung out with him the entire night. I'm like, this is a star. Why does he not do this when the camera's on? And then finally he got his opportunity, and, you know, angry, pissed off, compelling Dominic has now arrived. But he was there 4 years, Stephen, before anybody knew it. I mean, this guy is so funny, and his life story, the way he grew up and the places he grew. I mean, there's more to it. He's really compelling, but we have a lot of guys like that, and they don't know when to turn it on, and they don't know what to let come out.